Good evening or afternoon, everybody. Welcome back to another tropical update here by Adrian with the forecast, and we have a lot to talk about as Tropical Depression 12 has now officially formed here. As of just the 5 o'clock advisory here, we do actually have a 4:30 update, so it's actually 5 o'clock advisory. It did come quite early, so Tropical Depression 12 has formed and likely become strong Hurricane Lori or Larry. Sorry, not Lori. Larry. I was trying to say Laura, but Larry at the same time. So Hurricane Larry. I'm so sorry. I've been throwing the word Laura about like for the past 3 days all over the place. So I'm gonna probably say Laura once or twice around the video. So Hurricane Larry likely to become a quite just overall big out to sea system here. Going to be like maybe like a Paulette, uh, maybe Teddy or Epsilon type system here, where it's a rather strong hurricane but does not impact land here. So this is not going to be a massive threat like a massive MDR threat where it's for Puerto Rico, Dominican Republic, or anything like that. It's most likely going to steer to the north here as it gains rapid strength, as well as Tropical Depression Kate, obviously weakening here in that invest there across the overall Gulf, overall, it's like the overall gyre over there, the Caribbean gyre is most likely going to stay at a rather lower threat or lower chance for development here, as there's not much really model guidance is really picking up on that really. So just going to keep a very close eye on that. But Tropical Depression 12 is the main focus, but here's Kate right there at 35 miles an hour and 1,007 millibars, and now moving north, so at 7 miles an hour. And then Tropical Depression 12 is actually already 35 miles an hour. So like I did say, most likely what I said in yesterday's video, this could form into a tropical storm earlier than expected here. So I wouldn't doubt this does become a tropical storm within the next 24 hours or so. And it already has lower pressure than Kate here at 1,006 millibars and moving west northwest. So basically like that at 16 miles an hour. So that's likely why it's going to gain its rapid strength here as it's coming off Africa quite strong already at 35 miles an hour. And of course, it's most likely to become a tropical storm Larry within the next 24 hours or so. So here, look here, the latest look here at the visible we can actually get on trial depression 12. You can kind of see we are seeing a good amount of convection there north of the actual low level circulation. And actually, we do have a more uh, elongated low pressure. However, it's decently, it's obviously not too shabby looking at all. So it's basically within the general vicinity here. Just within 11 degrees north to 20 degrees west is where the actual low pressure itself is, and as well as seeing some overall good amount of convection kind of really diverging outwards out of the system here. As you kind of go in the GIF, we are seeing some overall good amount of divergent kind of cumulus clouds kind of spreading out there as well. An overall good amount of deep convection starting to kind of overall develop around this actual main center. There a good amount of convection across that general vicinity. Again, seeing a little bit of wrapping around this system overall, so keeping a very close eye on this structure because it's definitely not looking too shabby whatsoever. Um, but again, a good amount of convection kind of really popping up as well. We're seeing some early on lightning, so this is definitely most likely going to become a tropical storm very soon as we're already seeing some overall good amount of lightning here. And we'll see how it does overnight if it does get into a journal maximum. But you look at the latest one, we are still seeing some lightning here. But overall, this is not too shabby of a looking system considering it was just kind of considered an imbus yesterday. And now it's already top depression at 35 miles an hour and most likely going to become a tropical storm Larry within 24 hours or less. So here's the latest look here on IR, and again, like I said, we're seeing some overall deep amount of convection where we're actually seeing that lightning right here to the north of the actual center. So the center is actually most likely, like I just said, within 11 degrees north to around 20, just maybe 21 degrees west or 22 degrees west, maybe right here is where this low pressure is, with a lot of convection really developing here in the northwestern portion there of getting numbers as high as negative 80, maybe even negative 85 degrees Celsius. So overall, it's got a ton of convection within this system. So it's obviously not looking too shabby as well. Some good amount of kind of convection developing here in the eastern quadrant, likely kind of doing the little half shrimp look. But overall, it's not looking too shabby. You see a lot of outflow, or a lot of inflow actually kind of really trying to get within the system here. As well, we're seeing some good outflow trying to develop as well. So overall, it's not too shabby of a looking system whatsoever. So this with the latest look here at the A Scout, which is this is a little bit old here. I can tell it's a little old because this is actually to the east of 20 degrees west. And obviously it's around right here now. But again, you can get an overall idea that this thing actually has a pretty good overall elongated low You can kind of see that we're not seeing fully counterclockwise flow. Actually, we are seeing some good southwesterlies come in here. So obviously some good southwesterlies on this side, but we're not really seeing any northerlies or anything coming from the north or wrapping around from the northeast here and going southwest, wrapping around the system here. So overall, it's more of an elongated, pretty large area of low, not super organized. We are seeing an overall really good eastern quadrant there, where you see the southwesterlies, and then they turn into those general southwesterlies, and they go into the easterlies all around. And then, of course, you have to watch that we get some more westerlies wrapping around, and then getting some more southeasterlies wrapping around. But we don't really have that yet. We're kind of just seeing some widespread overall westerlies. Yeah, overall some widespread easterlies. Sorry, some widespread easterlies, and they're not really wrapping around the actual low pressure itself, which is why it's not a tropical storm yet. We're still going to get its act together as we go later on, though. But overall, it's not too shabby. We are seeing, though, some areas there of, let's see here, we are seeing some areas there in the northeast quadrant where we see the most convection. It looks like that's where the strongest part of the system is. And that's where we are seeing, though, those numbers of 30 knots here. Again, it's a little bit old, so it's a little bit different. But overall, the northwest quadrant is seeing some stronger winds there, obviously. And then seeing in the northeast quadrant, a little bit winds there, I believe of 20 knots there. So it's around 25 miles an hour. And then right here, we have 35 miles an hour located in the northwest quadrant. So let's now get a look at the overall tracks here on the latest 18Z overall model track guidance. And this obviously came up where it was an official tropical depression, so they have it as still MBS 90L. So it looks like the overall 0Z will be the most accurate as of at this point, but again, they don't come out for another while. So obviously, it's kind of go west northwestward until that ridge kind of picks up to the west, and it's gonna or start to the east here. That's gonna allow for it to have a lot stronger impact here and taking those southerlies that come from the high pressure itself, picking up that way, and that's why it's going to be an out-to-sea storm here. If this ridge were to form a little bit earlier, then we'd be talking about a bigger threat here for the Lesser Antilles and for the Caribbean. However, due to that ridge setting up exactly when it does and where it does, it's going to be a strong out-to-sea storm and should not pose a threat to any land or anything like that. Let's now get a look at the overall GEFS ensemble members here and what they have for the system as well. This is also MBEST 90L when they had an MBEST, because this is obviously from 12Z, so we're going to have to wait for a 0Z and see what that has. So 1,005 millibars within 24 hours. I mean, it's already 1,006, so I think it's definitely rather too high. Then they get it really strengthening here. Yesterday they actually had a minimum, or as minimal as 985, and then they're getting it as low as 976 here. So a lot more confidence, kind of really rising within this becoming a rather strong storm here. You see a lot of members as well getting it sub 970 as well. So this could very well become a rather strong out-to-sea hurricane, whether it's going to be a Category 1, Category 2, and we can the possibility for a major out-to-sea Category 3 hurricane. And let's now go look at the intensity guidance here for 18Z, and obviously likely to form within less than the next 12 hours or so. It's going to really strengthen this very conducive environment and likely become a hurricane within the next 48 or even less than that hours, and then become maybe a Category 2 or Category 3 hurricane. So we're talking about a rather strong storm here, most likely compared to Hurricane Epsilon last year, or Hurricane, I guess, maybe Hurricane Paulette. But I know it's obviously Hurricane Teddy, which was 140 miles an hour. But I think this can be more reasonably close to Hurricane Epsilon, which I believe was 115 miles an hour. So going to keep a very close vicinity of this, getting toward a overall strong hurricane. Again, a lot of them, the majority want to have it get to Category 2. We have a good few members getting it to a Category 3. So watching out for maybe a strong out-to-sea hurricane, but it should not pose a threat to any land. So that's a very, very good thing. Let's now get a look at the European tropical depression probability here. Obviously, it's already tropical depression, so we're going to have a very widespread 90 to 100% chance for a tropical depression winds within the next 1 to 3 days. With the next 1 to 4 days, or sorry, that's 0 to 3 days. And with the next 1 to 4 days, continue to see that 90, 100%. And then it gets lower here to around a 70 to 80% with the next 4 to 7 days as it turns northward. And then obviously rapidly decreases. Now get a look at the tropical storm probabilities as well, a 90 to 100% for the next 0 to 3 days here, specifically more towards the actual central MDR. That's where it's most likely going to form. And then as well starts to lower with the next 3 to 6 days. And then let's now get a look here at the hurricane probabilities here right now, rather low within the next 0 to 3 days at only a 10 to 20% chance. However, that really increases here as we now get with the next 3 to 6 days, getting a 50 to 60% chance for hurricane force winds, and then getting as high as even a 60 to 70% there chance for hurricane winds according to the Europeans. So it's obviously some really high confidence early on here within a chance of getting this to a hurricane. And then that continues, getting to a more widespread and defined 60 to 70, and then it obviously decreases to a 40 to 50 as it gets closer to Bermuda. But overall, really watching out for an overall pretty strong storm here, out to sea storm like this, or like this. So we still, I think if any place has to watch out, it's going to be Bermuda, the Lesser Antilles, and the Greater Antilles should not have to really worry about this really necessarily. Obviously, again, the Northeast should not have to worry about this because the Canadian Ridge blocking it like that. So, obviously, I think we're going to be seeing as well I think a tut right here, something like that, or low pressure. It's going to kind of just get steered directly into the northern Atlantic and deep out to sea. Let's now get a look at the overall SSTs across the Atlantic. So right now, this is kind of located within an area which is really above 27.5 degrees Celsius waters and likely to go into a more favorable and conducive environment as it starts to go into more of a northern turn. So obviously, it's going to be going into the actual middle Atlantic. Is going to be heading into warm waters of anywhere from 28.5 degrees Celsius to 29 degrees Celsius. So there is, I believe, Bermuda right here. So based on Bermuda where it is, we can kind of get a general vicinity or general idea of where it's going to go here. So it's most likely to get some really warm waters for quite a bit here, which will be a big reason into its intensification. As when I get later on here into the actual Saharan air layer, obviously right now this is basically within a large tropical wave, which is a line for a very moist trough, kind of keeping a lot of that dry air from touching this low pressure. So there's a low pressure right there just south of all that Saharan dust. That Saharan dust is just going to get bent by the actual low pressure itself here and by the actual moisture bubble. So as the storm continues to push further into the MDR, the SAL will not only decrease in actual thickness, obviously, we may get a little bit of drier, but it's very thin here, and nothing will actually affect this actual system. So not even dry air is going to be a big threat towards the system. It's actually going to become a smaller threat as it goes deeper into the MDR. Typically, you see a bigger threat when it goes deeper into the MDR, but with this system, obviously, since it's considering going to be, obviously, this will be early September, we don't really have a big threat within SAL, which is why the peak season is the peak season at its time. Because I believe, mid-July is the peak for SAL, which is why a lot of the storms start to really struggle in the early on season. But right now, we're not going to be seeing any threats, any dry air, a huge path of just basically nothing whatsoever, which is why a big reason this could become a strong hurricane. Let's now get a look at the overall 12Z GFS. The 18Z does not come up like another hour, so let's get a look at what the 12Z wants to have. So we want to get to 1,001 millibars within the next 30 hours or so, which is somewhat reasonable considering it's already 1,006. So there you see that tropical wave right there. Obviously, a good low pressure associated within the actual trough itself. But as we continue to go later on, the GFS continues to have this really strengthen here as it goes deeper into the MDR, into a more favorable atmosphere, including warmer SSTs. But there it is, 991 millibars, and then down to 980. So the GFS really has it strengthening a lot there, getting to 970 in the central MDR there. So it's actually not necessarily too common to have storms form that strong in the MDR. Typically, it's kind of a 2017 type scenario with the MDR, but as you go closer to the peak, storms do gradually become stronger in the MDR because a lot warmer waters, less SAL, overall stronger waves. And the GFS has it getting to 967 millibars by September 6th, and then getting to as low as 959 millibars, I believe so, and then getting into the weakening, obviously, as we go further into the northern Atlantic. But there you can kind of see overall vicinity. There's the actual ridge. You can kind of see really kind of keeping it or kind of pushing it the way it is and steering it like that. So you can kind of see the overall kind of clockwise flow, steering it that way. Since this is going to be a really strong storm, the high pressure is not too far, and having more of a northerly turn effect than if this were a weaker storm and the high pressure were way up here. It'll have more of a western type threat here, but that's not going to be the case with this one. Again, GFS really has it getting strong. Let's now go look here at the CMC and what they have to say for us. So the CMC as well taking a little bit more of a weaker approach, but due to that weaker approach, the CMC is taking it directly towards the southeast United States here. So that's obviously quite concerning here. If this does do what the CMC wants and has it really weakening rather slow, or weakening, or strengthening rather slowly, this could be probably maybe a threat for the United States here. But there's look here at the 900. This is 96 hours on the CMC, and this is 96 hours on the GFS. Pretty big difference between 965 and 993 here. And that's exactly why I said the further weaker it is, it's more the trade winds will have a threat here, or more of a bigger factor. The CMC were to verify, we're talking about maybe a Florence type system here, and I had to throw that out here. I believe this is the same day that Florence formed here, August 31st, in the same area, so that's obviously quite a big coincidence here. However, considering the condition, I do think the CMC is definitely underestimating this strength, as only having 993 millibars in the central MDR, and even the icon, which is saying that kind of due west for a while here, due west directly, looks like it's going to directly hit the Western Antilles. It's a big storm, but obviously as it really strengthens quite quickly here, it's going to start slowly start turning northwestward here. It's kind of going directly, and then it starts going like that. So obviously, if you can kind of see my point, if the CMC were to verify, we'll be talking about a massive threat for maybe even the Caribbean, as well as even the United States here. But I think the CMC is definitely underestimating the system here, with a lot of track guidance as well, and symbol guidance as well, overall model support favoring this is going to strengthen quite quickly across the central MDR and even western MDR. That's going to allow it to avoid areas including the US and the Caribbean. Let's now go look at the overall 10-year wind speed, so they can kind of see the overall tropical wave right here, an area of 35 miles an hour across the trough. And then as we go later on here, this GFS wants to have this within 48 hours become a 43 miles an hour system. And then really getting its act together here at 60 miles an hour, then continue to strengthen here within 72 hours, 3 days getting it to 68 miles an hour, then 85, then 90 miles an hour, and within 96 hours having it at a category 2 hurricane, borderline category 2 hurricane with the category borderline category 1 with the borderline category 2, then getting it weakening a little bit and then strengthening once again here. I mean, this thing is an absolute monster. The GFS wants getting it up to 83 miles an hour near Bermuda, and then getting it to 82 again. But the GFS just wants an absolute monster storm here, gradually getting its act together. You kind of see the pattern though. As it starts to really strengthen, it's going to take a really big northwest turn here. But with the icon, they don't have it really strengthening until like right here. So it's kind of just missing, or just missing instead of the GFS like far out to sea. So it's obviously a pretty big kind of uncertainty. This is honestly going to be my uncertainty, because it can honestly turn northwestward anywhere at this point. Let's now go look at the overall vorticity though. So again, obviously you're going to be seeing extreme signature within vorticity out of the GFS. Obviously taking it away from Bermuda or any land, but the European vorticity signatures as well. It's pretty interesting because let's actually go let's actually go back really quickly here and restart, because that's not what I wanted. So let's actually go back now to the European here. European showing an absolutely crazy vorticity signature as well. Then 48 hours, a really good overall close low circulation with a stacked MLC there, as well overall some good counterclockwise and overall really tight rotation and vorticity within those close isobars around the actual low pressure itself. So obviously really good system there. But not as well, you can kind of see clearly see the trough kind of form like that. So overall really good system here within 48 hours according to the European. Then getting a lot better, a lot tighter spin, a lot tighter force, and overall a lot more vorticity, counterclockwise flow within 120 hours. And then it just goes absolutely crazy. The European wants to take it, just missing Bermuda here. And there you see that really strong ridge. That's the reason why it's not hitting Bermuda, because it's so strong and so close to the Bermuda high. That's going directly like that. If it were anywhere, if this high pressure were right here, this would probably hit, or actually if this high pressure were right here, this would probably hit Bermuda. But again, it's not what's going to happen here. Let's take a look at the overall shear. So overall shear should not be a big problem. If we look at overall upper level anticyclone, looking at these diverging winds here, kind of going south, then you kind of see some overall some really divergent clockwise flow within the shear in the upper levels. So overall seeing a good upper level anticyclone here, and kind of see those really good diverging winds, and overall good outflow channels. So this should obviously prevent a bit any threats of any shear within any troughs or ridges. And obviously it's going to continue to be a pretty big threat there. Look at that really strong outflow. I mean, as well, this is an overall really good looking upper level anticyclone here with a few uh outflow channels. So shear should not be a big problem. You see in the upper levels, we're gonna be seeing within the actual low pressure itself, less than 20 knots in the upper level. So it should not see any tilting of vortexes or anything like that to promote weakening or anything like that whatsoever. So keeping an overall close eye on the system, the conditions are rather favorable. And then last but not least, there's not going to be really any dry to really watch out for. This is a really strong tropical wave here, and that's just going to be even better. I mean, there's not even going to be much drier to even stop this system here. There's any strong SAL or ridge bringing in extreme dry air from the Saharan. So overall, it's like a really good storm. Could very well become posing a threat here within the next few days.